And we're back.
Yeah. Welcome to the Brothers in Influence podcast, where we stand to encourage, inspire, and add value in the areas of life, leadership, and community. It is June 18th, 2022. We got a double dose of celebration this weekend for Father's Day and Juneteenth. Come on, man. If you're excited to be here with us, let us know in the comments. Episode 17. And we out here.
Okay. Yes, I like how he just dropped that though real quick. Like and
Just popped it on us.
Right, he's like, well, I'm over here trying to work on something real quick. I'm trying to work on something.
Yes, sir. My name happens to be Ian Williams. I am your purpose coach. You can find me on social media across all platforms at Ian Coaches. Man, I'm glad to be here. Again, like I said, it is Father's Day weekend and Juneteenth, man. We got a lot to talk about. We got brothers barber retiring, man, So, we had to huddle up and support each other, man, in the time of mourning. But as usual, I'm shoulder to shoulder with two prolific men of God, fathers, husbands, difference makers. We got the professor. We got our resident historian, financial coach, thought coach. Man, listen, it's about to go down. We hopefully, it'll all be positive. Won't no tears be shed, but we're gonna be honest. We're gonna be transparent because losing the barber is hard. Without further ado, I'm gonna let these men introduce themselves.
I am Shante Price, and I am your thought coach. Always a joy to be in the same room or on the same podcast with these brothers here. The same stream. I like that. The same stream with these brothers here. Father's Day, Juneteenth. We want to make sure that if you are a father, that you do know that you are appreciated. Let's get it.
Yes, sir.
Hey, y'all, it's Sherrod Ledet, your growth coach of Greater Lexington, the professor, the leadership locksmith. Listen, I help leaders.
Message from 33,432.
Yup, what she said all day. I grow today's leaders for tomorrow's business, right? Helping them get them from their now to their next in the areas of life, leadership, entrepreneurship, and business. And I'm working on now becoming a barber since my man done lost his barber. So I'm gonna get my license and I'm gonna come get you together, Playboy.
So what you saying? So what you saying is now I really got to get that money because I'm gonna have to fly you in just to get a haircut. Oh man. I know the Lord finna make a way now.
Or pay for the gas, for the road trip, because that's hey, I'm just saying.
I don't know. Right about now, the flight might be cheaper.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Hey man, I gotta hit the DJ horn one good time.
DJ horn,
because we got a new pitch alert. Professor slid in with a new pitch. And then tried to play it off like it wasn't nothing. Run it back in, brother. What is it?
Yeah, I said growing today's leaders for tomorrow's business.
Yes, sir. Hey, man, Brothers in Influence, we stand to encourage, inspire, and add value in the areas of life, leadership, and community. One of the ways we support each other, man, is in business. And as we talked about, it's been a couple of weeks now, but we talked about giving ourselves permission to practice, right? Not from the standpoint where we don't have our stuff together. I mean, we're not perfect. We're not going to pretend to be. What I mean is, in business, you don't have to have it all figured out, right?
Yep.
And so as we go, we grow, right? And as another one of our mentors says, we grow on our wings on the way down, man. And taking that, what we call or can identify as a leap of faith, it's constantly put us in a position that we're growing, we're evolving. And so I just want to give my brother a shout out, man, and not kind of skirt past that new pitch, man, because things business changes and we're growing, man. So, hey, man, this is the place where we have permission to practice, brother.
Yeah.
So when it's game time, we fall to the level of our preparation.
Yeah, that's good, bro. Yeah, lights come on. Don't get scared. Right? Don't get scared when the lights come on.
Yes, sir. What's that? Right. Our one mentor, the other mentor, he said, "Don't flinch." He said, "That's why." Ain't that what he said?
Don't you flinch,
right? He said that's why he calls on us. That's why he calls on us. Why he's thinking of things for us to do because we don't flinch.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons that I haven't flinched in a while is because of this podcast. So I want to give y'all brothers y'all flowers. I appreciate y'all, cultivating a space where we have that permission to practice. Man. Be who we feel like we're created to be, and growing into in the top of shoes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Perfectly in pursuit.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And that's good, man. Because you're right. I think that's the thing that we forget, that in business we think that it has to be perfect all the time, or we have to have that when really every day is game day, but every day is also practice. Mm-hmm. Right? Like you have to put in practice what you're going to do. So I mean, it's trial and error. It's up and down. It's left. It's right. It's wrong. It's right. Right. Like you just ain't. And I think what I love about that permission to practice is really just the fact that it's just the permission to allow really things to develop the way that they need to develop. Mm-hmm. I had an idea, I had a vision, like we all do, right? We never get into business to be an employee, but we get into business because we have a vision. And just because we see that vision doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to turn out the way that we see it, but we still got to move forward, right? We got to still move forward and be open to the pivots and the changes. That's why you got to practice.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Otherwise, Mr. Man, sprain your ankle out here. Sprain your ankle.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. I think that's just one of those messages like we brought up recently. I think that's going to stick around because with the three of us, we're all in business. We all we definitely have some parallels. We're loving fathers. We're married, et cetera, but all of our journeys are different. You know what I'm saying? Even though we have those things in common, and what may have worked for me last week may not work for Sherrod this week. You know what I'm saying? And so we all have our journey, and though we can learn from each other, we can glean from each other, we can get advice from each other. We're all just practicing. So if you take my advice, then what you do, you go and practice it and see if it works. You go test it out. If it don't work, you're going to adjust. You might get some different advice and try something different, and until you find what works for you. And so, we're not on here acting like, we got the end all be all of answers, but we do have, as a community, we have the opportunity to join each other in the journey, support one another, and 9 times out of 10, we can accomplish more together than we can on our own. And so that's the beauty of it, man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You said community is opportunity. I love that. And what's powerful about that, I've just been thinking about this all week, how, for me personally, looking back at my life, I was a real shy kid. The friends I did have, I think of friends that I did have, but we moved around a lot. I think of those people that I considered friends, but we moved. And so, never know what would have happened with that friendship. Mm-hmm. But I think about now, man, now that I have that community that you're talking about, I have all these opportunities because I have, at minimum, I have a dozen guys I can call any day and share my ideas and get positive feedback.
Yeah.
And what I mean when I say positive feedback, that means if it's like, it's either good or bad. It's either saying, you know what, that's a good idea, but maybe you shouldn't do it like this, or maybe you should think about it like this. I got at least, I know I got more, but at least a dozen guys. And I got at least a half a dozen that I might have not even talked to in a couple months. But when I do call, they pick up the phone and I can still have that conversation. We can pick up where we left off. And so when you said that, that just resonated with me, because community is opportunity if we recognize it, right? So
that's good, because you need that group, that one guy, that friend, that community or whatnot. That one person that's going to tell you, listen, that's not going to work. You're right. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. Right. Because I think nowadays we seem like we want to be so connected, or we want to be so involved in the community, that we're willing to just say, oh yeah, and agree, when we should be saying, okay, now that's probably not the best move. Right. Trying to fit in, or trying to be liked, or, instead of just being honest, right, and being authentic. Because here's the reality: in our ability to, community being an opportunity in building, you want the right community, right? You want to be connected to the right community, and you'll find that only when you really start sharing authentically who you are and what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So, because I got a couple of them cats too. I can call, like, hey, I want to do this. They're like, don't do that. Don't do that. I got two brothers on here that call me out quick, like, bro, what you doing? Don't do that no more.
I mean, realistically, we need as human beings, as men, we need multiple sources of that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So what I think you guys allude to in community, you'll find that you'll have peers that can have those conversations. Like us three on here are peers. We are actively involved in one another's lives. We actively support each other. We're on our individual journeys, and then we also have mentors, which we've kind of given shout outs to already on this episode. Who, we don't necessarily give a lot to, but we get a lot from them. They, and they're able to share their wisdom and experience. And based on that, they can kind of check us if necessary, and be like, yeah, bro, I don't think that's gonna work, or but you out of pocket, you know what I'm saying, based on this. And so that's but understand that those are totally two different sources. The nature of those relationships are different. And then also you have colleagues too, right? People you work with who aren't necessarily your friends, but you guys have a shared experience because you're in the work environment, you're navigating problem solving together and all of that stuff. They can speak to you to a certain extent, like in relation to your job, right? So, for example, if you're on a 9-to-5, you may have leadership peer colleagues, or people that work in different departments. You have conversations like, hey, you know what I'm saying, what you're doing is cool, but it's not working for me over here. Like, and that's a layer, but that don't make them, they're not your peers, they're not your mentors. You know what I'm saying? So just understanding the nature of those different relationships, and the fact that they each have value and they each have a place is super, super important as we grow into adulthood. And I can speak, from as a man, that's very important for men to understand, like who plays those roles in their lives, and to really open your heart. You know what I'm saying? I think that's another thing, like open your heart to have those relationships. I think a lot of us would struggle to even, get to the starting line in terms of having healthy relationships. But once you understand the nature, like, that has its place. Like, I wouldn't expect my coworker to tell me how to handle things at home, but I might call my brother who is, in the trenches with me and does life with me, and have that conversation. And I might even hear that from a mentor, depending on the type of mentor they are. Like if they're a life, leadership, and community mentor, like we got in the Present Influence, then we can talk about it all. But if they just a business mentor, then my marriage ain't got nothing to do with that conversation.
No.
So you know what I'm saying? What I'm really advocating for is not only healthy relationships, but healthy boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. I was and I think Shate, you the one that turned us onto this book, and I was trying to look it up real quick. Uh relational intelligence.
Yes,
And I
sir.
was trying to remember the
No,
four
that was
areas.
you.
Now you put us on that one, bro.
Yeah, you put us on that, bro. Yeah, he be reading so many jewels, like like he only share about 10% with us, like that other 80-some%. I'm just saying.
So you just gonna call me out though.
Oh yeah,
See,
yeah.
this is community, right? Opportunity to call you out when you mess up. Yeah, all right. So yeah, I was trying to remember, but it's a great book. So relational intelligence, and it's basically the people skills. And the reason why I thought about that was because bro, Ian, you brought up a good point, especially as men, right? And this even when we just think about relationships in general, point blank period, relationships are definitely connected to emotion.
Mm.
Right? And
Mhm.
for us men, right? Let's just be honest. Like emotion ain't high on our priority list, right? Like how to handle that, how to deal with that, how to use that, what that looks like for all of us, and it's different. And it shows up differently, just depending on where you're at, what you're doing, what you got going on. If you're in a pandemic, if you're not, if you're in a recession, if you're not, like it's all kinds of different things. But the relationship is so important, and I think just for men, because our conversation and our perspective and the things that we're dealing with are different, right? It's
Yeah,
different. The weight load is different, and that's not downplaying anybody else, but I'm just saying for when it comes to us men, it's just a different conversation, right? It's
yeah,
just a different type of connection when we think about just relationships. Right. Like it takes, we can be cool with a lot of people, but to call somebody and be like, hey, bro, like I'm tripping right now, or to get that real deep and personal emotion, that area that you don't talk about, that door that you keep locked and the key in your pocket, right? To have that conversation with somebody. I mean, to be even completely transparent, right? Like, bro, before you even jumped on Shate, Ian, I got on and he was like, bro, what's up? Like you could tell, like you off, right? And
mhm,
I shared with him, right? And he don't know this, but that took a lot, right? Let's be honest, that just took a lot because I don't do that.
I knew that.
Okay, so yeah, he did know
that's what
that.
I was gonna say.
I knew that.
You knew.
No, I knew that.
Yeah, that took a lot, and I didn't even know. And the beautiful thing about that, so this is it's beautiful because I really didn't even have the words to say. I really didn't know how to articulate it. I didn't know what. I just knew that I had this feeling, this emotion that I was going through.
Yeah.
But Ian, bro, he was just like, yep. Right. It wasn't like, okay, so what does that mean? Like, so he didn't try to coach me. He didn't try to like, okay, bro, this is what you need to do. I need you to. No, he was like, okay, cool. Yeah. So what do you need? Right. So he was there. And listen, I don't know if he had an answer or not, but he was like, well, listen, the one thing I know I can do is pray. Right. And to me, when we think about relationships as men, like we need that guy or guys or that group, that community that again, shoot, I might not have the perfect words. I may not be able to articulate it. I can't even, I'm like, hey, I don't know what, I'm just not at 100% right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, that's cool. Yeah. So
Yeah, you on point, and I think especially when we talk about Father's Day weekend, even in Juneteenth, and just how relevant those two things are with the whole thing being us men, being able to be free, right? That's part of what that's the foundation of this Juneteenth. It's about freedom, right?
Yes,
And when I think about when I wasn't free, like in prison, like I couldn't do what I wanted to do. They told me when to sleep, when to eat, when to go to work, when I can make a phone call. everything. When I can go work out, when I can go watch it, whatever. It was monitored. I had no freedom. And even when I got out of prison, I still had limited freedom because even though I wasn't in prison, I was on supervised release. So I still had to do this. I had to do that. I had to do that. Right. And just the transition to be able to come out of that. And then when I think about Juneteenth, man, that wasn't an easy thing in general. Right. Because it had already been going on. Right. They just found out at this point. It had already been going on, but a few years later, we find out on this day that guess what? You didn't have to be doing this, right? And then, but we're still feeling the effects of that, right? We're still feeling the effects of that, and me as a father, and I've said before, not really growing up with my father. And even the relationship now is, it is what it is. It's I just know that as men, especially men that I've never met a man that didn't want to be a father. I've met plenty of men that didn't know how to be a father.
Come on.
And I'm pretty sure I'll meet other men that are struggling to be fathers, right? But if you fall in any of those categories, it doesn't make a difference. One reality remains the same. It's not an easy task to be a father. But what makes it a lot bearable and that helps is having men around you, whether you grew up with a father or not, but having men around you that can encourage you. I got men, I got brothers that ain't fathers, but man, I wouldn't know because of how they encourage me to be a great father. And you know what, you even though you don't feel like you are at times, you're a great father, right? It's encouraging to have that encouragement from other men that even when I feel like it ain't right, I'm doing something wrong, they're there to say, man, you're a great father. And that truly is a blessing. And so I kind of wrap that all in one, but I think it's all relevant that, being a father and being free to be a father, right? Because I that little girl, man, I love her to death. And she tickle me every time she say I'm mean and I'm a mean dad, and because she can't get what she wants, it just tickles me to death, right? But I know that no one's gonna be a great father to her but me. So if I don't do it, yeah, there could potentially be somebody else to come into her life that can be that figure, but there's not going to be another me, and I have to take every opportunity that I have to be that for her.
Yeah.
I love how you tied the freedom theme, particularly the whole narrative, like, lo and behold, we didn't have to keep doing what we was doing. And I could tie a lot of things to that. I can see a lot of connections there, basically. What I'm trying to say. Yeah, man. Of course, I'm gonna think first about mental health. Like, I think I was listening to a narrative recently, and it talked about how the ramifications of allowing the things that hurt you to define you. And like the consequences of allowing that to shape your identity, or not only shape your identity, to be your identity. Like, I'm the guy that was fatherless. I'm the guy that, was rejected by my family. I'm the guy that, whatever the case may be. But when you said that, when you made that statement, like, we don't have to be doing what we thought we was supposed to have to be doing. How you said it, I think y'all get what I'm saying, right? Like, I don't have to do that. Like, I don't have to be defined by those things. Like, I'm more. There's more to me. And like you profess, like, you're becoming secure in your identity as, like, I am this girl's father, and nobody's going to be able to be that but me. And so I'm taking responsibility, major key, to be the best father to her that I can be.
Mm-hmm.
So even if there's some other dude who is around that could be a father figure, he can't be me. He can't do it the way I can do it.
Nah.
And so taking responsibility, taking ownership, and choosing that identity, because it's a choice. Like you said, oh, bro, I've never met a man that didn't want to be a father. I met men that didn't know how. And let's rewind 15 minutes. Give yourself permission to practice, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah.
man. Listen.
Yeah.
Give yourself and have that community in place, so you can have the opportunity to glean, to learn, to grow, man, to see it, because most of what we have missing when it comes to things like this, fatherhood, when it comes to things like spiritual leadership, is a lack of demonstration. But when a man can see some demonstration, he can visualize the fact, he can come to the realization that it's within reach.
Yeah.
Yep. Bruh. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to kind of piggyback. Like, y'all in here killing the game, man. Like I'm over here taking notes. You know.
We out here, bro. We out.
I got a pen and piece of paper with me at all times.
Brother,
right,
so I'm grabbing car, bro.
Yeah, check it out though.
Open profit right here, bro.
So, hey, you said freedom, right? And that resonated with me. And I know we were talking, you was referencing Juneteenth, right? But community is opportunity is also freedom. Right. And I think that's why that resonated with me, is because within community becomes that freedom, right? That freedom to be you, authentically you. And I know, like you were saying, like, even as the title of the father, right? That's not easy. And we don't always get it right. We don't even know what that looks like. The reality of it is, no matter what the title is, we don't always know what that looks like or always doing the right thing. I mean, father, husband, man, son, brother, like you name it, like that. Those are all different identities with different titles, with different responsibilities, but the same person. Right? So it's like, how can I have the freedom within myself to be able to be all those different things, but still be me? And the reality of it is, I don't know, just be you. Right? And make sure that, again, you have those people around you that are encouraging you, that are loving you, and that really accept you no matter the title. They see you.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's the opportunity and the power within communities, because listen, a lot of the communities that, and I think a lot of people that are watching this call, on this stream or whatnot, we all know we're connected to a lot of different communities. And there's some communities that we engage in, and then there's other communities that we don't engage in. Some communities we feel free in, some communities we don't feel so free in, might even feel trapped. But you still have to be able to identify who you are, right? And I love it because you said, Ian, I believe you said the things that hurt you, but they don't have to shape you. Right? And even in communities, right, which is all about relationships, let's go ahead and get it right? All relationships aren't the best. They might have started off one way, but they didn't always end the same way that they started. They either end better or they end bad. You get hurt. Now that whole relationship is, who knows, torn, tainted, I don't know. But because of that doesn't necessarily mean that has to change who you are, shape your identity, or even take away from anything. It's lessons in all things, right? And that's why it's so important to be in communities that encourage you. Even if you're let's go ahead and keep it all the way real, between the three of us. Like, if something happens between the three of us, I'm just speaking for me. I can't speak for y'all. But if something was to happen, right, I feel as if I can come like, hey, bro, you said that hey, I wasn't feeling that. I wasn't vibing with that. That hurt my feelings. Right. Now, I think that we would have a conversation and you'd be like, okay, well, hey, whatever that conversation. But it's the fact that I feel okay and I have the freedom to come and actually do that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, man. I think, I'm listening to you talk about the different hats. And I see them. I almost see it like as an extension, or maybe even more of an expression of who you are. Than because you're you, right? But fathering and parenting is what you do. It's not necessarily who you are. And I think that I've heard this more from. I feel like I can connect this more to motherhood in some cases, because our women, they raise our children, and when the children are grown and they're gone, they're like, who am I now? You were always there, and it's important once you realize that to maintain you, right? You got to take care of you and not be completely defined by that expression of you. And so at your core, like when I hear Charles Tate talk about how he loves his daughter to death, like that love he has is a part of him at his core, and how he parents her is an expression of that. But it's only one part of him. It's not the whole of him. I mean, there's so much more to Shantae's story. When I think about my son, my 6-year-old, and just trying to figure it all out. You know what I'm saying? I'm grateful that I've had permission to practice, and I've given it to myself. And I think that's a major key too. You can't get that permission from nobody else. You got to get that from yourself, bro. You got to get it from yourself and figure out what it is. Like for me and my son to connect, it's totally different probably than the way some other father and son connects. But I had to give myself permission to practice to figure out the best ways to do that. And guess what? I can see, that I'm going to have to continue to do that as he continues to grow and change and evolve as a person, as an individual. Because my prayer is that, we have a healthy relationship to the end of the road. You know what I'm saying? And I know that not every parent relationship has had that privilege. So I'm already thinking like, man, I want to maintain this. So what do I have to do? Because at my core, I love him with all my heart. And so what is my expression then? What does that compel me to do in my expression of that, in my parenting, in my connecting, in my relationship with him? And the same thing with my wife. We've had our ups and downs, man. Frankly, we almost lost our marriage. I almost gave up our marriage based on different choices we were both making at different times over the last 10 years. But as she continues to grow and evolve, and she has grown and evolved, I've grown and evolved, and thankfully, we've had that permission to practice. It makes all the difference, man. Giving ourselves that permission, especially in those intimate relationships. And it's funny. Like I was thinking about my son. We all three of us, my wife, my son, and I, we had this thing. We'd be like, I love you more. No, I love you more. I love you more. One day, my son came home and hit me with the okie doke. He came home from daycare one day. I said, I love you more. But he said, well, I love you more than you ever thought. I was like,
yep. He just checkmate.
Exactly.
Checkmate. He's like, yeah, I got something for y'all.
You ain't even want to play no more.
I see the whole conversation.
All right, you won.
He was like, yeah, but wait a minute, hold on. What'd you say, player?
So you know what you said, Ian, though, is powerful, because I just started volunteering as a mentor, and that's kind of what we were talking about this week. And who are you? And I was telling the guys, like, when you think of the word when you think of that question, I told them, I said, that's the greatest question you can ever answer for yourself. Who are you? And I told them, I said, you are a lot of things. You're a son, you're a nephew, an uncle. And I told them, I said, take a piece of paper and just list all those things. And those are all relevant to who you are, but they're not who you are.
Right.
And after you write all those things down, then you got to ask yourself the question again, who are you? Because you're not any one of those things individually. Those things are a part of you, but they're not who you are. And I told them, I said, because they're like teens, 13 to 17. It's like, you have to begin to work that out within yourself, because people will tell you who you are if you don't know who you are. Right. And once people tell you who you are, you can end up where I was. in prison
Mm.
because I believed what the world was saying about who I was. Right? You could become the player because that's what the world is telling you you are. You can become all these things based on what someone else says you are when you don't know who you are. And you have to take, and until I did that as a man, till I realized who I was and who I had the potential to be, only then did my life begin to change within prison, because it had to start there. Because I've met many of men that it didn't start there, and they tend to end up back in prison, or they're on a long, drawn out, up and down roller coaster journey to get there on the outside. And so I would just say that to anyone listening to this podcast. Answering that question will be one of the greatest things you'll accomplish in life. Just answering that question, who you are. And why one of the greatest things? Because once you define who you are, then you're unstoppable.
Yeah. Now, and if I could add to it, man, don't ask that question once.
Absolutely.
Right? Don't ask that question just once, because we are always growing and evolving. Right. So you're always adding to it, and so it's not just a one-time question, a one-time thought, and then I got it. That's not the case. It's not the case. And to backpedal just a little bit, right? Like y'all both on point. Like you're absolutely right. Like we wear all these hats, but I also find that again, it is an expression of who you are. But sometimes, and a lot of times, because of the environment that you're in, or because of whatever is asked of you at that particular time, based on your role or that expression of that uncle, whatever, son, brother, father, whatever, we have a tendency to fall into that and kind of forget everything else. Like I should be carrying everything across the board. Like they should all be one part. They're all one part of me. But at the same time, we sometimes compartmentalize or put ourselves in a box when we should be putting it all together. Because you're right. I am all those things, but I am me.
Yeah.
Is whatever that looks like. That's me.
I think the key is like start with you first.
I like that.
Right?
Yep.
And then no matter where you go, you can show up as yourself.
Yeah. Which is just again a strong expression of what Shante said, right?
Exactly.
You gotta know who you are.
Yep. I think that's what it start with yourself first. And because it's like, we talk about if you don't write your story, somebody else will write it for you. So the question is, what are you going to let define you? Something's going to do it. What are you letting define you? And if you decide that you define you, okay, then that's a great place to start. If you say you define you, that's a great place to start. And so to me, like, what that comes down to is like, for example, a practical example of that is my core values. Right? What are my core values? And I, as much as I say that, I think, I feel like this is something I often bring up on the podcast, because I'm giving myself permission to practice. I even have to be reminded. I desire to be defined. I choose to be defined by my core values. And so, just for example, if I say my core values are faith, family, et cetera, et cetera. So that means what I'm confessing on this recorded stream right now is that those are my non-negotiables. Those are my non-negotiables. So what does that look like day to day, right? When I wake up in the morning, how does my faith and family non-negotiables play out? When I interact with my son in parenting, how does my faith and family, like my faith informs my parenting, right? My focus on parenting informs how I navigate the world. So there's been a couple times on here in recent months where you've noticed where I haven't been on the podcast, right? Well, my son has had soccer games. He went through a whole soccer tournament. He's only 6, but he had a whole soccer tournament. To him, it was important that I be there. And so to me, it was important that I be there. And so I had to call the brothers and be like, hey, I'm not going to be on the podcast in the morning. Y'all got it? Y'all going to hold it down? It's like, yeah, we got you, bro. And so that's just an example. Like, If I'm doing business, I'm trying to build a company. I'm trying to build a sort of company that has a culture that says, hey, my son is graduating and I need to go on and be at the graduation and that not be a problem. Right? But I get clear on that up front so that when the time comes, it won't be no him and Han like, oh man, like we don't do that. We work, we grinding, we don't sleep. You know what I'm saying? Who cares about what it's about making that money? Nah, bro. I built this company so that when my son graduated, I could walk away from this desk for how many ever hours and be there for him and go celebrate it. And that's the kind of company. And I would want you, if you work with me, for me, I want you to do the same. That's what I'm saying. So no matter where you are, no matter what hat you have on, what are your non-negotiables? What are you saying is the most important things in the whole world to you? And so that's just what I call a practical example. You get clear on that, man, it'll take you a long way. Like Shante said, you be unstoppable.
Yeah, and even like Sherrod was saying, like even about it isn't just a one-time question for yourself, because I'm not the same guy I was a year ago. Right. You know, since the podcast and meeting you guys, and I got other guys I've been knowing for a couple years now. So, you know, we're always evolving. But I'm glad you brought up the values thing, because that never changes. Really, the core of it never changes. Right. So with that I think that, like you said, that gets back to the foundation of answering that question. Yeah. Because most people tell you their values, but you'll see them walking over them every day. So it's really not a value, because it's not that important. If you're gonna say it's like the a little white lie, right? A lie is a lie. One of my favorite quotes: "A half truth is a whole lie." Right? It's like there's no in between. Like it either is or it isn't. There's either, you know. So it makes it easy for us to paint in between the lines, right? And say, okay, well, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but right. But when it's a value, when it's really a value, when it's something really dear to your heart, something that you stand on, something that if you walk out in the middle of the sea on, it's not gonna break. But oftentimes, if you tell a person, okay, what's your core values? And okay, if that's your core value, you're gonna walk out here on this plank in the middle of the sea. And if it is your value, you're gonna walk out and walk back. But if it's not, guess what? When you get in the middle of that thing, you're gonna fall. Yeah. Because it's not true.
True.
And I think, you know, we just got to ask ourselves the hard question. I think that's the key point, is when you ask yourself that question. And when you ask yourself that question, you have to ask those hard questions that come along with it. And only you can answer it. Like, mama always said this about you, but mama can't make that be. Granny always said this about you. You know, back in the day, people became preachers and stuff because everybody said, "Oh, he gonna be a preacher," and so they okay, but they ain't what they wanted to do, right? And oftentimes we see the manifestation of that with people that went into certain careers and stuff, and it really wasn't something they wanted to do. And later on in life, they quit and go do something they love, and they're just really successful at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and again, I think there's never been a call or a podcast, man, that we have not talked about self-awareness, right? So that's just the other term of what we're talking about.
It's one of our pillars.
Yep. Self-awareness, right? And that's what, like, when we think about relationships, when we think about like who we are, and we're asking ourselves, like, who are we, right? Like, what do we do? It's all about self-awareness, right? Being able to identify, you know, what makes you you. The more self-aware you are, guess what? You're going to find the right opportunities at the right time in the right way, right? No matter who, what, or wherever you're at, those are going to be. So self-awareness is so critical in your development, because again, it is all about you, right? What makes you you? And that's one of those things that, again, for me, and I'm talking about the DISC assessment. And with the DISC assessment, we're all certified on here to do DISC assessments. If you want to know more about that, go to, get on our social medias, get to our websites. You'll see more about that information. Just connect with us. With no problem with sharing you what the DISC assessment looks like and what it does. But for me, that's a part of my daily routine, my daily review. Like, I pick it up, I look at it, and I look. So, because again, like Shate said, he's like, I'm not the same person I was last year. Brother, you ain't the same person you was yesterday. You ain't going to be the same person you was by the time we get off this podcast. Like, we are constantly evolving and changing, right? Evolution has everything to do with application, but there's another step to that. You then have to elevate, because after you put the application in, then there's an elevation, because that's implementation of what it is you learn. So the more you learn more about who you are, then you can start acting in those things. Right? You can start walking in those things. You can start, and here's what's going to happen. My man Shate talked about core values and walking out in the middle of the ocean. I'm telling you right now, don't walk out in the middle of the ocean and you don't know your core values are, because you had a chance to step out there and it breaks and then you can't swim. Right? I'll tell you that bad. I can swim. I can't tread water. Right? So listen, you just don't want to step out there and not have everything you need. And that's what self-awareness does for you. It builds you, because you know what? You might thought that was your core value. You start walking it and start developing more about, or knowing more about who you are. And then you might find out, that might not be more of a core value for me. Or you might find out, actually, that is a core value of mine. Right? Like, you just don't wake up with them. Those are things that develop and evolve over time as you grow and develop over time.
Yeah.
So,
man, you said real quick, Ian, you said evolution about application. How did you say that?
Oh,
We
had to go rewind the tape.
Evolve, apply, elevate. That's what it was.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Right there.
You said evolution is about the application. That's what you said.
Yeah. Evolution is Evolution is about application. Elevation is implementation.
Okay. All right, Ian. I just wanted to. Okay.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. So yeah, like, it's just like, I would say the values are similar to your vision, right? When you have a vision, that's another thing you got to give yourself permission to practice and let that evolve. The word says, write the vision and make it plain. I think the making it plain part is an ongoing process. And I think in our case, I think I can speak to the three of us. That is important because we have our vision, and then we realize it's so much bigger than what we originally thought.
So much bigger.
And I think that has to do with how we're wired. And that's, we know to have that self-awareness. And so that might be a little different for somebody else. But ultimately, as you grow and you mature, you get perspective, you can see a little bit more of what God has for you. I can see more of what God has for me now than I could 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Man.
Right? And so revisit that vision, continue to make it plain. Continue to make it plain, man. And so those values follow suit. Those values should follow suit, man. And so, like, I gave those two very simple ones, and I've actually had pushback on that recently. I was teaching somewhere, and it was like, well, I went through a values training, and they pushed us past these simple one-word descriptors to what was really my value, and my value was the seeking of truth. Like, the seeking of truth is really important to me, and I was like, that's fine, but like you don't even have a full understanding of what that full expression of what my faith value means. You don't have no idea. Like, that one word says more than probably you could write a whole book about that one word, as far as how important that is to my life, because it includes several. It includes my testimony, it includes my relationship with my wife, it includes my personal redemption, it includes the redemption of my marriage, it includes the demonstration that I feel called to live out in front of my son as a man of faith. It includes what I do when I get up first thing in the morning. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so, but that's true to me, and I think that I hope that I'm conveying that in a way that you get how deep and how important that is, and why something like that, something so simple, can be a foundational piece.
Man, so vision and goals, right? So again, I'm part of the Master Builders. We had our forum today, and one of the things we talked about today was just revisiting our big audacious goals, right? Because we all have goals. You said vision, that made me think about goals. But one of the speakers today talked about just basically faith goals. So she said she had her SMART goals, but then she realized that, again, in order for those to help her get to those goals, she needs to add some faith on it. I said, ooh, faith goals. So even though they were specific, they were attainable, they were relevant or realistic, and they were time bound, she said, I needed to add faith to them. Shout out to Bridget, boy, because she was like, I had to add, and then she just started preaching, and she went in. She went in. But my point is that, when we have a vision, we still got to attach goals to those things, right? We have to attach. It's the roadmap. It's how we're going to attain. And if it truly is a vision, if it's something that you wrote down that you really believe in, then it makes sense for you to add goals to those things. Because then that means that it's not just something that you think about and that you're talking about, but it's something that you're doing, and you believe so much in it that you're putting it as a goal. You're putting the action steps in necessary in order for you to get in it, to get that what you vision, right? But then I'm just going to say, sprinkle a little faith on it, right? Make it now just not just a vision, not just a goal, but make it a faith vision, make it a faith goal. And listen. When you do that, let me know, because I want to hear the testimony. I want to shout and run with you. Yeah, bro. Like when you said that, I was like, "Ooh, I got to share that," because it was powerful. It was powerful, and it gave me a new perspective. Right? SMART goals are great, but hey, listen, I got faith goals now. I'm gonna work with that.
Especially if faith is one of your values.
Yeah,
it just makes sense to me.
I think that's actually really, really amazing if you think about it, because you can even ask some pastors about that. They'd probably look at you like you're crazy. Faith goals. And if you think about it, how much further along a lot of people would be if you literally had faith goals. Because we know what the word says and what God has promised us, or all these other things, right? But even within, if we talk about promises of God, right? Yeah, the promise is mine, but am I ready for it? Right? The promise is mine. Like, some people don't. I used to tell people all the time, like, some people don't have. There are some Christians asking God for things He's already given them. God can't give you something He's already given you. And I use the example. I buy my daughter a bike. She said, "Dad, I want you to buy me a bike." I buy her a bike. I put it in the garage. Daughter, your bike's in the garage. She come ask Dad, "Dad, I want you to buy me a bike." Right? I can't buy you something that I've already given you. It don't work like that. And I think that would be just amazing to even dive more into that, because it's important. If that's one of your core values, like Ian said, if that's one of your core values, that's even more important than a lot of the business goals that you got set. If that's one of your core values, faith goals. I'm gonna meditate on that this week.
Hey, I'm gonna
thanks, Bridget. What's her name, Bridget? Thanks, Bridget. Faith goals.
Faith goals, boy. And she preached it. Sir. She didn't say it. She preached it. And everything. We was all out there just laid out.
She didn't know though. She didn't know that was for me today, even though I wasn't on there. It got to me.
All right, man. Listen, we got the Mobile Prophet, Financially Thought Coach. We got Professor. growth coach of Greater Lexington, and you got my humble self, Ian, the Purpose Coach. Man, listen, we wrap it up. Our 17th episode of Brothers Influence Podcast. Father's Day and Juneteenth weekend, man. We done touched on everything from fatherhood to freedom today, man. Faith goals. Man, final thoughts, brothers, as we look to wrap up. Final thoughts.
I would say, as we're into this weekend, this Father's Day, Juneteenth weekend. I would say, one of the things that fathers tend to want, they kind of want to be left alone, right? We want a time of we know we got kids, but we want to relax.
Mm-hmm.
That's just something that we want. Most of the time, we're not gonna get that. Either you're gonna be cooking, even though it's your day, you're gonna be cooking something, or you know what I'm saying. But with that said, we do need to find that space. As fathers, as a whole bunch of things, but since it's Father's Day, as fathers, we need to be able to find those times of peace and comfort, those times we can get alone, because we carry a lot in general, but oftentimes we carry a lot more than we need to be carrying on our shoulders. So that would be my final word. Hey, enjoy this weekend, but also moving forward, just be able to find your space to relax and unwind and have your me time.
That's good.
Yeah, that's the thought coach for you. Like, he's gonna leave you thinking. But hey, listen, I just want to drop like that. I realized this was our 7th or 17th episode of our 2nd season. So I'm just gonna drop this last thing. Go back and check the 1st season out. Anybody that's watching, if you just jumping on, you just now tuning into us, go back and listen to the 1st season. Stay tuned in the 2nd season, but go peep us out in the 1st season. And then there's some nuggets back there too.
Yes, sir.
Happy Father's Day.
Yes, sir. Happy Father's Day. Happy Juneteenth, man, from the Brothers Influence Podcast, where we stand to encourage, inspire, and add value in the areas of life, leadership, and community. Signing off. We out. Love y'all.
Peace.